Oh my word. I couldn't believe this when I saw this. But yeah, this is true. This is apparently what we're reading here 100% true. By joining the Pacific Partnership, the UK's boost will be 0.08%. But believe it or not, as we are about to find out, this, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, is a overestimate. Yes, the 0.8% boost to our wonderful trade deal that we are going to get is an overestimate. So they have artificially inflated this number. So the 0.08% in reality is even lower. Thus going to show you joining the Pacific Partnership is useless. There's no point because there is no benefit. This is why we've seen them desperately try to talk up the bigger, like, foreign and political benefits of joining the Pacific Partnership, which even then aren't that great a benefit. Oh, we can stop China from joining the Pacific Partnership. Woo. This is just such an absolute nonsense. I mean, why are we part of this? I mean, this would be exactly like if Australia were to join the EU. Yeah, there might be some benefits, probably some really microscopic benefits to Australia, but it's still a country on the far side of the world. Why? Because Australia is in the Pacific. The EU is in Europe. It's in the name. So why are we, a European country, joining a trade bloc and initiative set up for countries in the Pacific? And especially this now, there is no reason for us to join the Pacific Partnership whatsoever. And if this is the best they can do, well, then this just goes to show you that if Brexit was all about trade, as we were told during the referendum, or at least whatever Brexit was about that particular day, then Brexit's been an absolute failure when it comes to trade, because the Australian and New Zealand trade deals are absolutely garbage. The joining the Pacific Partnership is also absolute garbage. And the deals with potentially Mexico and Canada that we're about to sign as well, also, by the rumors, are also absolute garbage. So let's get into this because, oh my word, this is words just fail me. But if this is an overestimate, which is the shocking part, and it was already so little to begin with. So let's find out together on this little journey, shall we? So before we do that, though, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. Please do remember to share this with people, because we're going to find out a bit later. People think joining the Pacific Partnership, according to a poll done recently, is a positive. I don't think people are going to be thinking it's a net positive very soon. So, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So let's go on and find out more about this overestimate. So this comes from The Independent with the title of "The Predicted 0.08% Boost from the UK-Asia Trade Deal Could Be Overestimated." The government's prediction that its Brexit trade deal with the Asia-Pacific countries will grow the economy by 0.08% may be an overestimate is now emerged. Officials working on the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the CPTPP, the deal changed their usual approach to try and calculating the GDP figure, and instead used a new model that generates a larger estimate of GDP impacts according to the government's own documentation. So they used a model which would on purpose inflate potential GDP figures. I think that says everything you need to know, to be honest. Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch last week responded to the mockery of her own low figure, which amounts to at least 1.8 billion economic boost, by stating that her own department estimate was probably too low and ignored some of the benefits. But her department's own small print suggests the number might have been even smaller had the previous model for calculations been used. The Brexiteers' government ministers have all been keen to talk up the benefits of doing trade deals outside the EU, but they have been left frustrated by their own forecasts, which show limited economic upsides from these new free trade agreements. When speaking last week, Ms. Badenoch argued that the Pacific Partnership would bring in significant economic growth if we used it properly. Again, if we used it properly. Can you explain how that would be? Because we always hear this from Brexiteers or again now Badenoch, which we'll probably be hearing about this. Oh, you don't understand. If we use it properly, if we Brexit properly, if we take advantages of Brexit properly. But maybe they should actually start saying what these properly provisions are. However, she admitted that she did not have the hard numbers to back this up. I can't stand this estimate, even though it came from my own department, she said, of the 0.08% figure. The technical document published by the Department for International Trade states that the officials could not employ their usual approach to calculating the GDP benefits of the deal, known as the Markins-style model, because there were too many unknown variables. Instead, the department used the so-called augmentation style model to try and get their number for the Pacific Partnership, which the document notes tend to produce higher GDP figures for a given free trade agreement. This model was also produced to the results that are not directly comparable to the previous estimates for deals with the US, Australia, Japan, and the New Zealand, the document states. The argument model itself is not unusual, and this is routinely used by trade modelers and academics. However, the change in methodology has raised eyebrows given the political focus on such a small benefits of such trade deals. Sam Lowe, a trade expert and senior fellow of the King's Policy Institute, told The Independent, while the approach that the government has taken is perfectly credible, the change in methodology does seem to have been made with the intention of making the GDP figure sound more impressive. Nick Thomas Salmons, the Shadow International Trade Secretary, described the government's record on trade as lamentable. No wonder they need to present this figure in almost as favorable way that they can find. The OBR predicted a 0.6% fall in our exports in 2023 and a hit to over 51 billion pounds to the UK economy. This hammers UK growth and will make the cost of living crisis even worse. And he is right. We have seen that because we have left the EU, because we have seen such a dramatic fall in our exports. Remember, if Badenoch's deal is true, that it is, when was it? That it is 1.8 billion, and yet we are set to lose 51 billion to the UK economy. That doesn't really make up to the massive hit in trade we are taking, does it? So, Sarah Green, the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for trade, said, no matter which way you look at it, the official forecast says that the economic benefit from this deal will be small. And instead of trying to discredit the official figures, the government should be working to grow our economy by cutting the red tape, stopping British businesses from exporting their goods and services abroad. After failing to secure the original objective of a Brexit trade deal with the United States, the government has now presented joining the Pacific Partnership as its flagship trade deal and a major benefit of leaving the EU. Ministers say that there are, quote, wider benefits to the agreements not captured by the government's modelling. The Independent understands that officials have been asked to look at ways to try and capture these. So please, the economic model doesn't make sense. So please come up with some way we can measure the benefits. Please, they cry desperately as this joining this deal fails miserably all around them. So the use of this Armington model is speculation rather than the Malaise style model speculation. The effects of the estimated scale of its impacts. Significantly, it generates a larger estimated GDP and impacts for any given free trade agreement from the department's own sources states. The use of the argument model specification, along with the updates to the database of its estimations of trade barrier reductions, means that the scale of these impacts in the scoping assessments are not directly comparable to those presented in the published scoping assessments for not only the US, Australia, and New Zealand. In the analysis published by the UK Trade Policy Observation, Minako Morita-Jaeger says that with the accession to the Pacific Partnership was a, quote, geopolitical strategic gain. The economic value for the UK is likely to be small. The policy researchers noted that the UK already has bilateral free trade agreements with 9 of the Pacific Partnership members, and even including comprehensive deals with Japan, Canada, Singapore, and Australia. Currently, polls do suggest that the public has high hopes for the agreement. A new Savanta survey for the Independent shows that 59% of those asked do believe that joining the Indo-Pacific Trade Pact is important, while only 17% believe that it is unimportant. A spokesperson for the Department for International Trade, which looks over the responsibilities, the Department of International Trade, earlier said this year that the scoping assessment reflects the historic trading patterns and does not capture all the potential impacts of this deal. It does not account for future expansion of the Pacific Partnership, the value of increased supply chain resilience, or future changes to sectors the UK currently excels in, as increased importance of the service trade. Well, okay, here's the thing. You can just rubbish that right now. So, first of all, this Pacific Partnership only going to benefit people who are in the Pacific. The UK is not in the Pacific. It doesn't matter that we have this tiny island somewhere in the Pacific, the Pitcairn Islands. That doesn't matter because all our factories are all in the UK. Those suddenly can't just move to the Pitcairn Islands. That's not how it works. So us joining this is absolutely ridiculous. And the idea, it's going to have future expansion. Well, South Korea might join. It's not a guarantee. And to be honest, as we've said before, trade deals become big political pieces. And we are about to probably see, I would highly suspect this should become a big feature potentially at the next general election. If, Labour wanted to make it one, could absolutely do that. Anyway, they continue to say, our ascension to the Pacific Partnership sends a powerful signal that the UK is open for business. No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. And we are using our post-Brexit freedoms to try and to reach out to new markets around the world and grow our economy. Again, just because you are reaching out to these new markets doesn't necessarily mean you are going to gain any economic benefits. If the 0.8% is a massive overreach of this, an overestimate, then what's the real number? Because it does look like this is going to be this is going to be an absolute disaster of a trade deal for nothing. And people need to understand this is not a good trade deal. That if we actually wanted a good trade deal, well, we've got one sitting right on our doorstep that we could join. So, yeah, and again, most people that are asked about this when it comes to this, again, they're reaching so far back into all this that they're hoping that, oh, because again, Britain used to have a big empire. We used to do this, all this, all this trade in the Pacific. Well, no, that's not how it worked. We had what was called the imperial preference system, which basically meant we would extract all the resources from those colonies. They would be sent to the UK, where they would be made in the big sort of the factories up and down the north. Then all those colonies that we had, and all those people that were part of the sort of the empire sort of system that we had, guess what? They weren't allowed to trade with anyone else. So all the British manufacturers, all those British companies essentially had a captured market. And that is how the UK worked as an economy. So this whole idea when people say, oh, Britain was this amazing trading nation, we can trade again with all these people, they are underestimating just how actually the system worked. And bear in mind, this was the UK's style right up until we lost the colonies and we decolonized in like the 1950s. That's how it worked. The UK never really evolved its economy or what it did. That's why we became the sick man of Europe, because we continued with this idea. And now we are going back to this idea, which again is going to get us absolutely nothing economically. But it's good geopolitically. It's really not. It's really not. We need to just ditch these grand scale ambitions, because what's wrong with wanting to be a good, well-governed nation? I think that is a far better ambition for our country than having these grand ambitions and being mentioned in the same breath as the United States. Who cares? Let's just be a well-governed country, because many other countries do that, and we've sneered at them. Ireland, the Netherlands, Denmark. What's wrong with being like those countries? So, yeah, this trade deal is not going to go well. And of course, there is a ton of disadvantages, massive ton of disadvantages, which the British public have yet to really experience. But oh boy, once they start experiencing them, they're not going to be happy. I can tell you that already. The farmers certainly aren't going to be happy when we have to accept all those lower standards of imports that under the Pacific Partnership we have to accept, even though we currently have higher standards and regulations than those countries. Because that's what the Pacific Partnership is all about. It's not about harmonization, it's about having to accept everyone's standards, even if they are lower than yours. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.